See, did it go? I think it went. All right, good morning, everybody. Hopefully we have a strong enough signal stream this morning that we can actually do this. So the first thing I wanted to say is garden like you're old, because one day you will be. Instead of setting up your garden so that it requires a lot of grunt, a lot of strength, a lot of moving things, a lot of intricacy. Instead of gardening like you're strong, garden like you're weak, because one day you will be. So I think if you set your garden up as if you were 95 years old, or if you set your garden, here's one that's easier for young people to put their head around. If you set your garden up as if you were setting it up for your 95-year-old grandmother, knowing that you're only going to be able to go visit her once a month, and you know that she loves to garden and she needs to be able to garden every day, that's how you should set your garden up. You should have automatic watering systems. You should have light, easy covers for when there's frost, and you should have your garden set up in a way that it's physically easy for you to get to it and to maintain it, whatever that means for you. If you don't do this, then when you have struggles, or if you have times when you're away from home, for one, you won't want to go out in it yourself, but two, you won't be able to have other people go out and take care of your garden for you during those times, because you've set it up in such a complex way that they can't take care of it for you. Hey, Cheryl. She says, I'm 67 and appreciate your information. Thank you. I'm 42 and I appreciate this information. It is brought home to me more every single season when inclement weather comes in, or if I get sick or my kids get sick. It is so reassuring to have set up my garden in a way so that all of my watering is automatic, and my children can do it, my husband can do it. All of my greenhouses are set up not to rely on finicky electricity or specialized systems, but instead just that all you have to do is open a door. I do have automatic venting on my greenhouse, and it can be plugged in, but generally speaking, I try to keep it even simpler than that with very straightforward venting. Robert said, thank you for putting these videos out. They're very helpful. I'm in my 70s. Yes. And here's the thing. You don't even have to be in your 70s. If you're a young woman who wants to garden while having young children, then you need to set up your gardening system so that when you're not available to take care of it, it either takes care of itself or you can do it in 5 minutes a day. That's really important. When you're pregnant, it's really not much fun to have your bum in the air and try and work around a really big belly. If instead having something like a hotbed allows you to garden when you're in your childbearing years, it's really nice to have a hotbed. I remember that from when I was pregnant with Paige and Kaya. All of a sudden, I was just so crazy gardener lady. And yet I was like almost 9 months pregnant, out there trying to put peas in the ground and having to work around my belly and having to crouch and all these things was very unpleasant. And even though I still did it, it didn't make me love gardening. So here's the thing. Not all of us have a big, strapping, strong teenage son to go out and lift heavy things, or maybe we don't have a husband who is mechanically or tinkering handyman inclined. In my case, John does not like to build things. And because of that, it's not like I can show him something that I want built and then say, honey, can you build this for me? It's really not in his vernacular to want to do something like that. And so I have to be able to have things built that are easy for me to build when I have the energy to build them. And then I have a couple little kids that I have to use their energy as best I can when it's something that's in their wheelhouse that they have the skill and the strength to be able to do. And so instead of depending on somebody else to come in and rescue me when I need something built, I have to build it on a really good day. I have to put it together on a really good day. I have to put it together on a day that I have money and set it up so that it can be taken care of by people who don't really care about it that much. It isn't really a passion for them. They're not worried about food security the way that I am. But that being said, because I have physical limitations, if I have a really, really good work day, a lot of times the next 2 days, I'm going to spend a lot of my time being tired and not really having a whole lot more in me to go out and garden. So that's why if I have a really good day, I'll go and I'll set up automatic watering systems. I'll make sure to go in and repurchase new frost cloths if I need them. I make sure to fix the venting system on my really good days. And then when the rest of my days, when 75% of my days are hard days where physically I don't have it in me, those days, all I have to do is go turn on the automatic watering system, leave it to water as long as it needs to, and then have one of the kids go on and turn it off. And the frost cloths, if we have windy, nasty, overcast days that are in the 40s or even the 30s, I leave my frost cloths on. I don't take them off. I don't open the greenhouses. I don't go out and check on them. I leave them. And then on a day that we have nice bright sunshine, I'll go out, I'll take off the frost cloths, I'll open up the venting. But on days that are overcast and not very friendly to plants, I leave them covered. I know they don't get as much sunshine as they would like, but they will survive. And the most important thing is that they survive until the next day that I have a good day. Love Cat said, my kids weren't into gardening at all. Yeah, my kids are occasionally interested in it when they're hungry, if that makes sense. When we start to have cherries come on, when we start to have sugar snap peas and that kind of thing come on, they're all of a sudden very interested in gardening. When it's time to eat, they're very interested in gardening. The rest of the time, occasionally they think it's interesting to mix potting soil with me. Occasionally they think it's fun to do a little bit of building with me. But I just consider it training. It's on-the-job training for them for later in life. And even though sometimes they whine about it a little bit, I make sure that they've done a little bit of everything every year so that it's in their memory bank. Sorry, I got something stuck in my teeth. Yuck. Robert Rittenhouse said, after I put in a solid 8 hours of work outside, I'll be off my feet for at least 34 days in pain. I feel this. Yeah, exactly. Depending on how hard I push myself. If I bring caffeine into the mix, it's even worse. If I feel like I have a big push that I can't say no to, I might have something with caffeine in it, a very small amount of caffeine, and then I'll get that work done for the day. It might be a week before I can work again. So it had better be a big project that was so crucial that I just couldn't get away from it for me to use some kind of outside energy pusher. But that being said, I've got like 6 garden beds that are all watered at the same time. Again, we have really cold weather. We're not getting into the 60s. We're not getting into the 50s until Friday, maybe. And that's been happening for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've had maybe 2 days in the 60s and 1 day in the 70s in the last 3 weeks. And other than that, we've been in the 40s. May have got into the 50s occasionally. And so it's really important that I don't have it set up in a way that my mind can talk myself out of gardening. I mean, that's really a thing. If you ever struggle with physical pain, if you ever struggle with emotional pain, if you ever have days where you're just discouraged, you feel like nothing that you are doing matters, that's the day you need an automatic watering system, because it will keep your garden alive until the day when you do feel like it's a happy day and the day that you do feel like what you're doing is important and worthwhile. You cannot just rely on those good, happy days to take care of your garden. You have to be able to go out on a grumpy day. You have to be able to go out on a cold day and turn that watering system on, if it's actually warm enough to turn a watering system on without chilling your plants. Let's see. Hey, Wholesome Roots, how are you? I was literally just talking about health and homesteading with Ryan this morning. It's really important. This last year, let's see, when was it? It was January. I already had my sweet potatoes and everything in the greenhouse. I didn't have my watering system set up, and I was aiming for perfection. And so I went out in the morning, even though it was a really cold morning. I went out in the morning and I took off the frost cloth, even though I knew I didn't feel good. I knew there was a chance that I wouldn't want to come back out and cover them back up. And the smart thing to do would have been to leave the frost cover on. Just leave the frost cover on. Okay, so the light is a little bit muted on your plants. At least they're not freezing. And that's exactly what happened. I was sick in the morning, but I took the frost cloth off, aiming for perfection, even though it was a cold, cold day. And because it was bright and I wanted them to get all the sunshine they could get. Well, by nighttime, I was exhausted. My kids were exhausted. We weren't feeling well. And it was just colder than it had been before. And I just thought, oh, it just doesn't matter. Nothing that I do matters because it's so cold outside. And la-di-da-di-da, the little script I played in my head about everything. And the script won that day. I did not go out and cover my garden, and it froze my plants. I had zucchini and sweet potatoes in the greenhouse, and they were doing just fine. They were doing great as long as I covered them during freezing weather. And so when we have these little scripts that play in our head on a bad day, we can't let that destroy all the structure that we've already created. Instead, don't aim for perfection, aim for ease and follow the easy thing. Give yourself a little bit of breathing space by making it easy. All right, Love Cat said, good times create weak men. My hubby just now. Well, and maybe we don't always use our wisdom during easy times. Maybe we don't have to work our gray matter as much to find solutions. I know for me, I don't know when my good days are coming. I don't know when my bad days are coming. And so having a system set up that allows me to be successful, whether it's a good or a bad day, there's nothing more important than that. Whether it's doing gardening or whether it's taking care of my family or taking care of meals. For instance, having a well-stocked pantry means that your kids can do the cooking when you're having a bad day. Having a large enough water tank out there with your animals means that if you're having a bad day, but you filled it up yesterday, it's okay. They can make it until you have 5 minutes when you're not feeling bad to go out and fill it up. Another really, really important thing that I really want to emphasize, oh my gosh, it's so important. Keep your garden as close to your house as you possibly can. Keep it as close to your water and your resources as you possibly can. It's a permaculture principle with the zones. You have 0, which is your house. You have 1, which is your backyard. You have 2, which is, a little bit around your house. There's 3, which is kind of the hinterlands around. Focus most of your planting and growing, especially if you're already somebody who struggles with really bad days. Keep it close to the house. The garden that we actually eat out of is the garden in the backyard. Do we have a greenhouse? Yes, but I hate to go out there to harvest stuff because I have to walk a long way. I have to carry everything with me. I can't turn on the water from the greenhouse itself. I have to turn on the water for the greenhouse from the backyard. And so I have to go through all these mental gymnastics in order to get to the greenhouse to harvest it, which means that the little tiny greenhouse in my backyard right now, the one that I build out of pallets and cow panels, is the one that I harvest out of for my family because it's only about 20 feet from my back door. I don't have to go through mental gymnastics. All I have to have with me is a bowl in order to go out and harvest, which means we are harvesting. Generally, the big greenhouse that's out in the back pasture, we put it there because it was too big to fit in the backyard, but we also put it there because it was just an empty spot where, everything was level and it would be easy to put the greenhouse up. So far away, we never harvest out of it unless it's a long season crop like sweet potatoes. I go out and harvest them all at once and I'm done. I'm not going out and harvesting it daily because it's too far away. Let's see. Cynthia said, hey, sweetie, been watching you for a while. I needed this video to thank you. I'm 53 and have autoimmune issues. Nice to know I don't have to do it all in one day. Yeah, you don't have to do it all in one day. What I do recommend is that you make a list of things that you think would make your life easier. And then when you have help, when you have a child, when you have a neighbor kid you can hire, when the guy down the street with the tractor has a day, have some money saved. Save some money, enough money to do all your projects at once while you have help. And then get it done in a day. All the grunting and the lifting and everything like that, get it done all at once when you have help. And then you can afford to go out and tinker with it to make it all work, but you've got the grunt work done. The emotional barrier has been lifted from your mind of you not being able to do it by yourself because you have somebody else. But for me, I don't go get hay anymore. I have it delivered. And I save money so that I can have this strong young man with his strong young back bring me hay and stack it for me. And better yet, if I order more hay, he'll just bring his tractor and he'll stack my hay for me. And I'll have the pallets ready. I'll have had the kids go out and put pallets up so that it's ready when he gets here, so he can put it on pallets so that the bottom layer of hay isn't getting wasted because it got wet. I think through things before anything heavy happens on my property, and I save money to pay for it. And I make sure that the kids have had time to do it incrementally so that it's easy for everybody. The people I pay aren't inconvenienced because I don't have everything ready when they get there. But I have to work around the fact that I know I can't do it myself. And instead of feeling bad about myself because I can't do it, I pay somebody to do it. I try not to pay too much, but by stacking systems and working at making things easier every year, it gets to the point where I can afford to have somebody do it because I'm cutting down on the cost of my other things by making my systems more efficient. Let's see. Jessica Lynn said, do I water every day? I don't. Especially in cold weather. I cannot water if it's not in the high 40s, low 50s, and we haven't been hitting that. So right now I'm watering about once a week. And I keep the frost cloths on, and I just turn everything on depending on how long it's been since I watered last. That's how. So if it's been a while since it's been watered and it may have dried out a bit, I water longer. But again, I can't do it when we've had freezing weather because the water in the pipes will freeze. It's frozen, and it will break the hoses. So we have to be really careful not to step on the hoses. We have so many automatic systems that are above ground that those hoses can't be stepped on, and I can't try to water with them until we're like in the low 50s, high 40s, because then I have to wait until like the middle of the day to give those hoses a chance to thaw. So there is some method to the madness, definitely method to the madness. You really have to know your system. You have to know your own weather. But also even if the hoses aren't frozen, the water in them is very, very cold. And I have to wait for the temperature outside to have lifted enough that I'm not watering my plants with almost freezing water. Because even though the hotbeds keep the gardens warm, having a whole bunch of ice water pumped into them chills the soil. And if it's already a chilly day and there's not a lot of sunlight, it chills the plants. All right, Love Cat said, we just moved to Northeast Arizona from balmy Southern California. It's a major shift. And we are now off-grid in Zone 6B. Have to haul water, have to build all the infrastructure. Yep. It's good to have little kids when you're doing stuff like that, because even just having them for gopher work is essential. When I was a kid, my parents bought a new property and we were off-grid for a while, and I was the kid that was 12 and was learning how to drive the old station wagon, and I drove to the neighbors at 12 to get water from their pump and then drive it back. That's how I learned how to drive, was hauling water. For my kids, we have a hand pump on our well, and when we were living off-grid in the little cabin, it was Kaya's job. I think she was 6 or 7. It was her job to go use the hand pump and bring water to the house, and all day long she pumped water in order to keep us in water. So it was her job. She was a very strong little kid, and we managed, and it was okay. But it was not it was not a lifestyle that made it easy to leave home for very long, because all of your systems require your hands. Nothing is automatic, and it can be very it's one thing if you have enough money and you can just kind of move along with the construction. It's another thing if you don't have money and you're trying to cut corners, and that can be very frustrating being off grid when you don't have enough money to move the steps along is emotionally difficult. All right, Todd Matson said, your health and energy issues hit home. One visit to a doc 10 years ago ruined my health. Oh, yeah, for a poke. But with a lot of alternative research and work, back to 80% energy most days, enjoying your channel. Thank you so much. Yes, I received all of my pokes when I was a baby and all of my boosters as I got older. And part of my autoimmune issue is mercury toxicity from that. And so I hear you in what you're saying. For me now, it takes a lot to trust a doctor. I've had the same thing with the dentist. He took all the enamel off the biting surfaces of my teeth to fix my bite. And it took years of drinking raw goat's milk and oil pulling and staying away from any kind of sugar or fruit for a really long time to fix my teeth. And now they're fixed. They re-enameled and they're just fine. So yeah, I think the alternative or health-based living and research and holistic medicine can go a really long way towards healing people. Robert Rittenhouse said, OMG, story of my life, LOL. I love when we know better, but we still do it. Yep. Know better. That's the story of my life. Love Cat said, I have bipolar and keep assuming our new lifestyle should cure it, but nope, some days I cannot deal. Yeah, that's the thing, is that it is still life. It still is a struggle. Homesteading is great. And I think that being outside and moving and interacting with animals and interacting with nature helps just about everything. I am so much better than I ever was as a child. And I feel like I have a layer of protection now, a buffer that I never had before. But that doesn't mean that I don't still have the script in my head of what I should be doing. The script of, well, if you were really X, then you'd do A, B, C every single day, and it would be wonderful, and you'd be cheerful while you're doing it. And that script is not accurate for me. I can be a good mom, and I can be a good gardener, but I have days where I instead am in bed. And I try to be a good mom from bed. And I try to be a good gardener on the days that I have good days, and I set up my system so that I can do it on my bad days. Hey, Tricia, how are you? Renee O'Day said, yeah. Anytime it's a mental thing, a hormonal thing or a mental thing, a lot of times you feel things that are not true. You assume things from other people that they don't actually feel about you. And if you can give yourself systems that help you to get through the bad days, if you make sure that the food in your house is something that makes you healthy instead of sick, that's a really, really big deal. Your body needs fuel. And that's why if you're just starting homesteading, I actually say go get your food storage. Make sure you have your food storage first, because especially in a situation where it's an emergency and grocery stores don't have food, your ability to cope, your ability to think, your ability to work depend on you having good food in your home so that you can replenish your systems. Your brain needs fat, your brain needs protein, your brain needs rest. And so by having food storage in your home before you start to worry about homesteading is essential. Do I have a child? Kaya? I have people who are supposed to be awake by now. They need to get up. Paige and Dad, can you wake up, please? It's time for her to get ready for school. Robert Rittenhouse said, lists can be depressing but necessary. I love lists. I do. I try really hard to mix in very small, like brush your hair. I put all my very small things at the very top. Oh, I'm going to wait a second. It says that our connection is unstable. Come on, connection. There we go. Maybe it came back. Okay, so I put my small list things at the top of the list. My first thing is, did I brush my hair? Did I make my bed? And did I brush my teeth? And then I put underneath that something I need to do for somebody else that's small, but I'm going to put it on the list because it counts. Even though it's not a a big magnificent thing that I finished today. I can look at it later in the day and say, what did I do with my time? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I took Paige to her 2 classes at the high school. I did that. I drove her there and then I drove back. I made sure that I put on the list to brush my hair, because sometimes in the morning, lifting my arms to brush my hair is all I can do, and it's all I can focus on in that moment. And then as I get some of these things on the list finished, I can move on to something that feels a little bit more project-y, instead of just checking the box of, I got up this morning. I did 20 minutes of yoga because my back was sore. I got up and I did a live stream, and I'm going to check those things off so that when I start getting my script in my head that I didn't do anything today, I can look at that list and say, no, I did a lot of things, and a lot of them were for other people. I wasn't just living for myself today. I got up and I braided her hair. I took her to school. I came back and I helped my younger daughter make lunch. And it's not going to include checking the garden today. Today I'm not checking the garden. You know why? We're not even getting into the 50s today. We're in the 40s. I watered 3 days ago. They don't need water today. I'm not even going to go look at them. The only reason we'll go out to the garden today is to harvest, and that's for lunch. Other than that, I'm not even going to think about the garden because it's not essential. I have my systems in place. Hi, honey. Do you mind waking Paige up? She is not up, and neither is Kaya. Thank you. Oh, I like that. Where did that go? Lovecat said, lists do the worrying so we don't have to. Yes. And make sure you put little things in there too. Don't just put in big things. Put in the steps. For instance, if I have a big project that I need, I might write the big project at the top just to remind myself later. But then I'm going to write a little thing under. I'm going to say, buy the hoses. And today, if all I get done is I buy the hoses, I have moved one step closer to being able to get the hoses in the hotbed, because now they're in my garage. No longer are they at the store. No longer do I think about whether or not I have the hoses, whether or not I can afford the hoses. I bought the hoses. They're in the garage. The next time I have a good day, I can just go get the hoses and put them in the hotbed. But for now, they're in the garage. Check mark. I got the hoses. Another one might be ask John to buy more peat moss. Next time he's in town, can I ask John to get the peat moss so that I don't have to go in and get it? We're already making a trip into town. It saves money on gas. Check mark. Got the peat moss. Let's see. Wholesome Roots said 1 inch of water a week during growing season is optimum. This can be done once or twice a week. Exactly. When I'm doing my in-ground garden, for the last 2 years, the girls have helped me with watering the in-ground garden. Now, when they took over last year, did everything get overwatered? Yes, because she would forget that she was watering and she'd walk away, and an hour later we'd go out and we'd have corn that got overwatered. So our corn was not as good as it could have been last year because it never got to dry out. And we had some molding when we went to preserve the actual kernels. However, I had an automatic watering system, one that a child of 13 years old could handle. And she went out and she handled it. On days that I couldn't go out and handle it, she handled it. It's also not perfect when I do it by myself. You know, there's days that I forget that I was watering the corn. It happened a lot last year, but, you know, she handled it. And now she knows how to set up an automatic watering system for the in-ground garden. Sorry, I got to sneeze. Pardon me. All right. Yeah, once a week is when we do the in-ground garden. The greenhouse gardens are a different story. Just because they're not in ground, the water can evaporate more quickly. The more mature the plants get, the less water they need, but they're at the beginning when the roots haven't really reached down very far. They need watering. If it's sunny, I water every other day or every third day. If it's overcast, I can let it go as long as I need to let it go. I can water once a week. I can water once every week and a half type of a thing, unless they're brand new plants. If they're brand new, just sprouting seedlings, I do need to go out and hand water them. I can't water them with the automatic system. If they're just coming up, I have to go out and water them by hand if they're that short, because their roots just aren't deep enough to go to something that has some water in it. But if I do that, a lot of times it's the only thing I get done during the day. I don't push myself past that. I say, this is the priority. Today, no matter what, I need to get on my gear. I need to go out. And the nice thing is that I've prepared for this. The way I prepared for this is I have a big trash can, massive trash can with a lid on in the greenhouse, and I fill it with water on good days. I haul the hose out, I fill it up. It's a 50-gallon tank. It's in the greenhouse. I fill it up on a good day. I have the watering can next to it. And so when we have a day that I can't water with my automatic watering system and they have to get watered, all I have to do is get bundled up, go out. I do it at bright, sunny part of the day when the ice in the trash can has melted and it's warm now because it's in the greenhouse. I'll then water by hand. And that's my big thing for the day. I may not get anything else big done that day. I might rest for a while after doing that. But I've set it up so that I'm not hauling hoses in the coldest part. I have a big trash can in the greenhouse full of warm water. I can water with that. I have made it just a one-step thing. The only thing I have to do that day is water with the watering can. Let's see, Love Cat. This is my first time having to worry about freezes. Different lifestyle. Very different lifestyle now, but glorious trade-offs. Yeah, there's pros and cons to both. Let's see. Where did it go? I feel like I lost it. Love Cat said, LOL, I feel like I waited too long to farm. Kids grown now. Well, when I started, I had babies and I had a husband that was trying really hard to care about gardening when I needed him to. And like he'd go out and take the rototiller out and try to rototill. But a lot of what I had to fix, I learned in my backyard. I learned in my backyard doing just a little bit at a time. And I experimented in my backyard a little bit at a time. And I had babies with me. I had little kids that needed taken care of. And one of the reasons I had to figure out how to do it easier was because I couldn't take my kids out with me gardening all day long, even though that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be out gardening all day long. I was learning so much. But I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I couldn't have them. A big epiphany for me was when we got heat stroke, and my kids got heat stroke too. And we were out of commission for a few weeks because of it. And so I thought, I got to pace myself. Instead of using all my energy out in the garden, I need to spend most of my time in here with my kids, take them out when the sun is nice and it's easy. But I need to learn how to garden in a way that I don't have to be there managing it the whole time. And that's when I started to put in my drip lines that were made out of broken old hoses. And I started to mulch. And the reason for that was that I needed to keep the water in the ground when I wasn't there. And I needed to make it pleasant for when my kids were outside with me. I needed to make it something that I wasn't always putting all my attention on in order for it to succeed. And I had to do it on a shoestring. Robert Rittenhouse said, I had my dentist do the same thing to me. Yeah. Doctors that don't care about the pain of their patients are really people you have to watch out for. Hey, Spring Meadow. Judy Reynolds said, good morning from windy, dry as a bone, West Texas. That's how we are right now, too. We've got lots of wind. It's drying everything out. We haven't had any rain. We're really hoping for rain this week. It would be really good if we could. Let's see. Gaming Terry said, hi, Julie. I think this is the first time I'm watching you, although I have watched you for years. I'm 64 and plan on starting homesteading in a few months. Good job. I would say start in your backyard. If you're waiting to be to a bigger property in order to start homesteading, you're going to be amazed at how frustrating it is and how much money it takes to homestead on a bigger property. We were homesteading in our 1/10 of an acre backyard, and it was so much easier than when we got here to our 1.5 acres, because here all you can see is everything that isn't getting done, and it's not compact. All your nutrition and all your work isn't going into this tiny place. Instead, you've got, 1.5 acres doesn't sound like much, but when we got to 1.5 acres, it was so much bigger than what we were used to, and I wanted to do all of it at once. I wanted it all to be beautiful now. I felt urgency. The people I was reading books from were telling me that it was urgent, and then I needed to put everything in all at once. But the problem is they were not in the same climate as me. They were in a climate that got rain, which means that if they put a tree in, the weather itself might take care of the tree. Whereas for me, in my area, every drop of water that gets to that tree comes because I put it there. And so I really, really burned myself out and did some really dumb stuff when we first got here. I didn't have the right tools to try and fill out 1.5 acres. I didn't have the money to be able to put in the trees that I wanted to put in. I didn't have the watering system. I didn't understand my property. I didn't understand my climate. And I was going to do it all right now. And I really burned myself out and I damaged my health further than it already was. Judy Reynolds said, I'm 64 with disabilities. I garden just a little if I can before the heat of the day. Yeah. I think when we stayed with Danny and Wanda at Deep South Homestead, I saw this in action. I've never seen such massive gardens as what Danny and Wanda in Mississippi have yet. They were so strategic about when they did what work that they were able to have a system that took care of things by themselves. They were very methodical in the way that they did things. They had grunt push days, but not if it wasn't like December, they weren't going to be out there pushing anything because it gets too hot there. So instead they'd have a grunt push hour right at sunrise, and then they might have a grunt push hour at night just before the sun went down. But a lot of their work was inside the house when the sun was up and so hot. They were really strategic, and they did everything a little bit at a time. I don't think I ever saw Danny and Wanda sweat. And I don't think I ever did in the time that we spent with them. They didn't put in sweat labor. They let their tools do the work, and they picked the right timing. And it meant that they could go out and plant, how many, I don't know, was that like 1/10 of an acre? They could go out and plant like 1/10 of an acre of sweet potatoes because they had a tractor with a tilling and hilling operation. They had a little stick that they pushed the sweet potato slips in. They weren't bending over to push the sweet potato slips in. And then they had one little bucket of water that they were going to pour a tiny bit of water in. And then they moved to the next one, pour a tiny bit of water in, and they worked together and they kept it simple, and it was not sweat labor. Let's see. Judy Reynolds said, I have Cochin, bantam hens, quail, rabbits in my city backyard, a garden with raised beds. See, that's what I love. Most of our food production, it sounds crazy, most of our food production is in our 1/10 of an acre backyard. I've deep mulched there. I have most of the small livestock centered there. I have our garden beds set up there, which means that most of the labor, most of the harvesting, most of the snacking, most of the laying in the hammock, it all happens in the backyard. There's very little that we do in the rest of the property until we put in the big row garden in the front. And then that one I have also on an automatic watering system. And this year I'm working really, really hard to get some more livestock in the front that will put my manure where I need it to be so I can put it right on the garden. That is my big goal, is to further simplify taking care of the row garden. The row garden is my beast in the summer. It's 5,000 square feet. It's really intensively planted. It requires a lot of water because we have voles. The voles dig tunnels to try to get to the vegetables. And if I don't flood it with water and flood their dens out, they come up and they eat the whole garden. Now, do I have a problem with that? Are they actually eating my garden? No, not at all, because I flood. My automatic watering drip system actually floods the rows. The rows are sunk to catch all that water, to hold it there in the rows rather than the paths. I have to be very deliberate about how I set them up. And I don't really have to think about it unless we're on a day that we're watering. But on the day that we're watering, it's an all-day process. It just is because of how big it is. Amy Stiles said, I appreciate your live streams. They've been very interesting. We have modified gardening as we've gotten older too. Yeah. I feel very strongly that you garden for your older self. You set it up for your older self, because now is the time that you probably have the money and the energy to set it up. Do it with yourself in mind, or for your kids, if you still have kids at home, or for your neighbor who does your chores when you're not home because you want to be able to go on vacation every once in a while. Andrea Blue said, this topic speaks to me personally. Thank you for this sort of advice and time management. You are so welcome. I wanted to do this morning because day before yesterday we were in the 60s, which was very exciting. high 50s, low 60s. We didn't have wind. Kai and I went out and we got one garden row done in about 3 hours. And it got me thinking about what I wanted to do the next day. Well, the next day was a bad day. It was very hard for me to do anything. We went and helped a neighbor for a couple hours, and I was so grateful that we could do that. But I counted going and driving 45 minutes and back and spending some wonderful family time with our neighbor as my big push for the day. And then I actually had to go to bed. So today I'm hoping we get more done, but I'm also keeping my list short because it is windy outside. I'm not going to push it in the wind. I'm not going to push it in the cold. I'm going to find something to do here in the house that makes me feel like I am benefiting humanity. I don't know what it's going to be because I can't sit any longer. It's hard on my back. So that is the quandary that I'm having today, is how am I going to benefit my humanity? How am I going to help my family on a day when it's too cold to be outside? I wish I was out there getting another row in, but I'm going to be realistic and say it's not going to happen. So what am I going to do? I don't know. I'll have to make some lists. Let's see. I think I'm a little bit behind on comments. Michael Alsup says, good morning. I grow a lot each year on 2 acres. I have a lot of problems with my back and neck and joints. I push myself every day for my family. I do wish I had some help from them. Well, and that's the thing is, what I have found is I have to sit down with my family and say, okay, guys, what do we want to keep? I'm going to turn this down. What do we want to keep? What do we like to eat in a year? What do we like to have as our experience for our growing season? And then they have to tell me what they're willing to help me with. This year in particular, I've had to have that conversation with John. He is working from home. He works full time, but because of my limitations and also because of the price of feed, I've had to go to John Moore and say, okay, what are our priorities this year? Is your priority that we have a lot of baby pigs born? And do we want to make sure we have multiple breeding stocks, or do we want to get down to a level where it's very inexpensive to feed them, but we're not necessarily keeping a lot of breeding stock, right? Have we had a lot of those conversations this year? He gives me the thumbs up. Has that been helpful?
To have those conversations?
Yeah, to see where the money's going and where the time is required.
Yeah, it's provided some insight for sure.
Yeah. So what's happened is where previously it wasn't really in John's wheelhouse, in his awareness of what I was spending on feed and how much time it took to do chores and what the individual cost was for each animal. But this year he has been out helping girls with chores, and then we can have better conversations about whether or not what we're doing is actually reaching our goals, or whether it's just us spinning our wheels and wasting money. It's been very helpful. So if you do have family and you do have a homestead, I think it's very, very important, especially if your homestead can cause you pain and can cause you stress. I think we have to watch out for bitterness. We really, really have to watch out for resentment and bitterness, because with the amount of work it takes and the amount of food you see going in the fridge, but maybe not having it be appreciated, I think that you have to watch for that, because it can be destructive to your relationships. I know it can be destructive to my relationships. When I'm not listening to my kids and I'm just pushing them to work harder and harder, it causes them to resent me. And then when I worry about whether or not we'll have enough food in the fridge, it causes resentment in me towards them that they're not helping more. And so sitting down and actually explaining, look, if you don't help me with this, we're not going to have cherries this year. Or look, if you don't help me with this, we're not going to have any bacon in the freezer this year. Or look, if you don't help me with this, we won't have any sweet peas. And then to let them just say, and we're not getting them at the grocery store. These are not things we can buy at the grocery store. They don't make this kind of food at the grocery store. So what I need from you is X. And I can't let it get too drawn out and too complicated. I cannot have it be too complicated. I cannot expect them to keep track of everything that I'm keeping track of and to know when they're supposed to do it. I need to be able to say, okay, today this happens. This is the thing that's important that it happens today. Who wants to do it? Or 2 things need to happen today. Each one of you is going to take one thing. We're going to make sure that it happens today. And that's another reason why it's really great to have automatic systems, is because it builds simplicity in so that the other person can do it without you having to hover over their shoulder and be frustrated that they're not doing it perfectly. Let's see, Judy said, hey, Lonnie, how are ya? Lonnie just popped in. I feel like I've missed a whole bunch. I feel like maybe I should start at the bottom and maybe work up. Michael Alsop said, yes, resentment is a hard one to deal with. It all does make one feel quite used. And so for me, I have to look at it and say, do I need to add more things to the property that would make my family happier? Do I need to add more things to the property that would make my family happier to help me? And one of the things I've done with that is Paige and Kaya help with the cooking now. And it feels very exciting for them to be able to go out and harvest in the greenhouse something that they're going to use right now. They're going to go get the greens to make the stir fry right out of the greenhouse. Having pears and cherries and lots of snack foods planted make the kids feel more engaged in the garden. Having sweet corn in July makes the kids feel more engaged with the garden. The fact that they then take some of the garden waste and go feed it to the pigs, and the pigs are super happy about it and they're excited about it, makes the kids feel more engaged. Another thing that I do is that when I have a sale of something that the kids helped with, when I get paid for that, if I'm selling a rabbit and several rabbits and somebody gives me $100 for 4 rabbits, I then turn around and give a child a $20 bill or a $10 bill or a $5 bill. But depending on how many rabbits I sold and how much I made and how much help they gave me with it, I hand them money when I receive money so that they can see the pros along with the hard work. I make sure that they feel all of the feelings that you get when you are being successful as a homesteader. When the money's coming in, I make sure they get some of it. When the food comes in, I make sure that it's food that they requested that's important to them too. And I give them other responsibilities besides just the grunt work. I give them some fun responsibilities and some fun choices. And I let them do some decision making about what we keep and what we don't keep because they do so many of the chores. Okay, Angela Nadeau said I do that as well. Swampy Acres said, hey y'all, how's it going? Dave Banner said, God bless you and your family. I would love to come over for dinner one day. That would be awesome. We're trying really hard to get the Airbnb up even. We're supposed to have it up in the beginning of May, but this year our weather and just everything we're trying to get done and everything we're worried about, I'll admit, things that we're worried about that we're trying to be prepared for are making it a little difficult to get the Airbnb ready for that early. Eva said, thank you for the great live stream, timely subject for me. I think it's timely for everybody this time of year. We want to burn ourselves out so bad. And we want to just push the season and we want to push ourselves. And sometimes it's so much better just to step back and take a deep breath and say, okay, what's the priority here? Really, the priority here. Spring Meadow said, oh, you're talking to Robert. Okay. Wait and see if I can find some that are addressed to me. Thank you so much, Spring. I wish the chat feature was like the comments feature where you click on the name. Oh, gotcha. Judy said, no bitterness here. It's healing to be with my animals and hands in the dirt. Well, a bit of grumbling with animal chores and bitter wind and cold. Well, exactly. For me, if I didn't have my 4-person family, my choices about what I would keep would be very different. If it was just me, I wouldn't have nearly the animals. The garden would probably be the same size because I would use it to feed the animals, but I would have nearly as many animals as I have. And I would simplify even more. I would keep my animals even closer to the house, and I'd probably just pretend that I don't have the rest of the property. I'd probably just keep all my animals in the backyard just for ease. I probably wouldn't graze them a whole lot. I'd probably feed them hay so that I didn't have to carry things very far. I would change things a lot if it was just me. Let's see. Michael said, yes, resentment is a hard one to deal with. It all does make one feel quite used. Yeah. Let's see. 1 Million Pumpkins said, hard work is a gift. As a Zen master said, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Very true. Robert said, true, I had chickens and it took all I had to take care of them myself. It was really bad in the wintertime. Nobody else would help. It caused bitterness. Now they want chickens again, LOL. Well, and those are the kind of things, those are the situations where I let the other person just take over and I say, well, if we're going to do that again, I'm happy to help with my know-how, but you're going to need to pay for the supplies. You're going to need to pay for the animal, and you're going to have to show me that you have it put together and that you are accountable for it. And all I do at that point is just, I'll give you the information. I'll tell you where to find the stuff. It's on you. You do it. We have to watch that we're not enabling and that we're not using all of our own life energy to facilitate things that people don't care about enough to do themselves. We have to be really careful about that. It's not healthy for us, and it's not healthy for the people that are allowing us to do that. Let's see, Robert. Oh no, talking to somebody else. Judy said, I'm just appreciative and privileged to be able to get outside and hands in the dirt. Good luck with all of everyone's projects. Take care of yourselves. Bye, Judy. Let's see. Kelly said, I've got rabbits, goats, chickens, and ducks. I have a large garden this year and 8 kids under 11 that I homeschool as well. I needed this. Yes, you have quite a lot on your plate. And I would say minimize as much as you can. I was the oldest of 7 children, and my mom homeschooled, and we had a homestead, and we had milk cows and goats and everything like that. And it was real. I mean, what came in from our homestead was really important to our table. We could not afford to buy food from the health food store, but we couldn't eat food from the grocery store. It made us sick. And so our little homestead fed us, and it taught us a lot about life. It was really good for us. And my mom didn't work outside, not much. She did a little bit in her garden, but for the most part, she was taking care of little kids and us. I was 12 when we got to our property. So I was the oldest. I was 12. And I was driving the car to go fetch water because we were off grid, and helping take care of babies. All of us older kids were helping take care of babies. But when it came down to doing chores and things, it was on us. My mom did. She would a little bit. She would a little bit in the winter. Sometimes she'd get on her greatcoat and come down and help with chores there in the beginning. Let's see. When Jacob was 2, she would come out and she would help with chores in the big barn. And train us. But then she got pregnant with my youngest brother. And after my youngest brother was born, her health declined. And so it was us kids out there doing all the chores all the time. But we were older by then. I think I was 15, almost 16 by then. So it made a big difference. It's real when you got a big family. You know, having chores set up in a way that little kids can help with them and not keeping more animals than what you really need, I think is a really big deal in that situation. Let's see. Michelle Galloway said, where did you get the rabbit water bowls that have the latch on the bottom? I got that one from bunnyrabbits.com? I think it's bunnyrabbits.com. They also have my galvanized metal ones that have the back latch thing. We love those in the winter, but they also have the blue ones with the little twist catcher.
Also, they have the ones that you stick on the side of the cage. And then
they have all sorts of them. So bunnyrabbits.com. I think it's a squirrely name, but I mean, it gets people attention, I guess. Spring Meadow Farm and Garden said, we have ducks, chickens, and cattle. Would like to add turkeys and pigs. I love turkeys as long as you don't mind. That doesn't matter how you clip their wings. They're going to go over fences. If you don't have a roof over something, they're going to go visit the neighbors, or they're going to try and cross the road. But I love turkeys in my garden. Once vegetation is knee high to me, I can put my turkeys in the garden. They don't scratch things up. They'll eat Swiss chard, but they don't bother anything else. And they'll eat all your grasshoppers. They're fantastic. Can you put him out? I think he needs to go potty. What is my favorite garden tool? My favorite garden tool.
No.
I have a little handheld tool that has a spike at one end and a little spade looking thing on the other end. It's a two-headed hand tool. I love that one because it gives me a far reach and it lets me dig a little hole or dig kind of a fatter hole. I really like that one. I don't remember what it's called. Good morning, cats and dogs. Good and Basic. Hey, Good and Basic. Good and Basic did the spinning wheel that we showed. He's thinking maybe he wants to come over and see Heidi get sheared this week. Good and Basic said, what tools would you prioritize to make the burdens of caring for the homestead while sick or old less burdensome? Automatic watering systems. Every single time. Mulch is nice. Mulch is really nice because it builds soil on the top of bad soil, but it's heavy and it's usually expensive. So I would just say automatic watering systems. Take one thing off your list that you have to actually touch. Spring Meadow Farm and Garden said, Swampy Anchors, let's see. Stones Throw Acres said, thank you for the live. We set up systems for future aging up. Great advice. Yeah, it's essential. A. Taylor said, I am one of 9, and that's how we ate from what we grew. I now do raised bed. Yeah, I do a lot of raised beds just because my soil it struggles. I can grow a big row garden, and I do grow a big row garden, but until we have our main growing season, honey, it's okay. You can come in. Don't be cranky. Until it's time for me actually to grow my big main garden, I have most of my year, I cannot grow a big row garden because of our cold. So most of the year I'm growing in hotbeds, and that's how I grow most of the year is a big raised bed. Spring Meadow said, yes, turkeys go where they want. We had turkeys in the past, yeah. 1 Million Pumpkin said, we have our first 3 baby turkeys now. One is already strutting at just a week old. Yeah, they're so cute. Swampy Acres. I don't think I understand what you said. Can you retype it? Cynthia said, y'all come to Missouri. I have 5.5 acres out there. No. Let go. Oh. Did he eat the needle?
No.
Okay, let's not leave that on the edge where he can get to it, okay? 1 Million Pumpkin says, auto watering is challenging off-grid, but I agree. It's the single most burdensome chore. For us, our automatic watering when we're off-grid is flood irrigation, which means that the only thing that gets watered when we're off-grid is something that I can flood irrigate from the ditch in the canal. During the years that we were here in the summer and we didn't have power, I did not have automatic watering systems, but I also did not put in a garden. I just didn't do it. We were already exhausted enough from hauling water. Yeah. Okay. I need you to eat and do it quickly because it's almost 7:30 and you haven't started with chores. Okay. So finish your food quickly. The Quiet Life said, hi, I'm about to buy land and we'll be building simplicity into it right from the get-go. Everything I will build will be with my more non-functional days in mind. Yeah. And make sure to ask people around you what your weather's like, what your property's like, because a lot of times it's your second and third year that you figure out that you have a low spot that always floods. It's your second and third year that you figure out that where you want your windbreak. A lot of times in your first year, you have no idea where things should go, and you try to dig down the mound over your septic with a rototiller. Huh. And then it floods out your basement through your septic. So for us, we had some dynamics on our property that we didn't know why they were there. It didn't make any sense why they were there. And until we removed them. And then once we removed them, we're like, oh, that's why that's there. It's so that we can't flood our septic. But we didn't know. Honey, pay attention so you're not getting it in your lap. Thank you. Yes, T-Hand, thank you. Hit that like button. It helps my channel. Laurie Kurt said, ever consider going south? Yes, we would love to buy property in the south. We did live in the south for 3 years in Tulsa, which is, not really the south, but it's a lot warmer than where we are here. And we spent some time in Mississippi and we spent some time in Florida. And I would love to buy some land in in one of those areas. But right now we've got to get our house paid off first, so we're not adding debt to our load. And then we will go south. We will keep this property and we will buy land as well. The Quiet Life said, I really appreciated the list system that the Fouch family homestead has. As someone with the physically debilitating autoimmune issues, it simplified things and helps take the emotional pressure off. I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to go look it up. I do know Fouch family, and I'm familiar with their channel, but I didn't know they had lists. I'll have to go look it up. Million Pumpkins said, we have to haul water from town until we can harvest monsoon rains. Yeah, that's a lot of work. We used to haul it in five-gallon buckets when I was a kid. And then we would go to my grandmother's house for showers. Come sit by me. Get your brush, because you've got it all fluffed up now and it's going to hurt. Get your brush. Let's see, what was the rest of that? Yeah, we had to haul it from our neighbors. And we didn't shower or do laundry at home. We went to the laundromat to do laundry, and we showered at my grandma's once a week. I wish at that point I had understood about like washcloth baths, but I was just a child, and so I really didn't know about stuff like that. And my grandma knew about it because she lived off grid most of her life, because she lived during a time when there just wasn't electricity out here. And so before I went off on my own, she told me a story about how when she was in her 20s and she was in, I think it was Alabama, she and her friend would get a little tin can full of water and a washcloth, and that's how they would bathe. And so when we lived off grid, that's what we did. We didn't go to my mom's to shower. We fit up a little hand sprayer, a little hand pump to shower with, and because it's highly pressurized, it requires very little water, but it gets you very clean, and it doesn't take a lot of fuel to heat the water up, that kind of thing. You hold on to it, honey. I can't. So, gotcha. If you guys haven't watched Off Grid with Doug and Stacy, they have a cistern system that they use. They don't have a well. They have a pond for watering their livestock, and then they have an above the ground cistern that they use so that their water's pressurized that goes into their house, and they harvest rainwater. And they're in Missouri, right? They're in Missouri, right?
Missouri.
Let's see. Million Pumpkins, our plan is to harvest the rain, a la Brad Lancaster, as well as position water totes in situ. Yeah, we've done stuff like that for our irrigation system for our plants. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't enough water for it wasn't enough water for the plants. It just, in our area, we have so little rain that it just wasn't enough. Oh, did Heidi make it in? It looked like Rain Country came in. Hey, how are you? I love Rain Country. They have a great channel. I love that they are off the mortgage treadmill. And I don't know. Heidi has some really interesting stories about how they have bucked the system. Swampy Acres said, I just got a homie? Is that the Japanese cutting tool? Gotcha, cool. Swamp Creek Homestead said it looks like a plow blade on a handle. Oh, I think I've seen that one at Deep South Homestead. Hey, Maniac Grammy made it. A Million Pumpkins said we did the washcloth thing, but now the hall water allows amazing showers. I feel so grateful for every incremental improvement. Yeah, it made a big difference. I think once you've been off grid and haven't had a lot of water, you never really think about water the same again. It's a blessing every time you turn that tap on. Let's see. Andrea Blue said, homesteading with kids that have been exposed to and enjoy tech and some of pop culture is a true culture clash. I think that's incredibly true. My kids, the cell phone that they have is shared with me, so I am aware of any information that comes in. They can't access the internet on that phone. Their one true addiction is audiobooks. They are quite addicted to audiobooks.
And don't mind me if I yell, because I'm wearing my hair.
Yeah, Andrea said it's like pulling teeth to get help sometimes, especially in uncomfortable weather. So for my kids, they're not allowed to have access to things like audiobooks or the computer or anything until after chores are done. Why are you taking it outside, honey? Did you decide to do
I
that?
couldn't see the orange kitten, and he doesn't know yet not to come and see his baby mouth.
So what did you do with the milk?
I put it in the big bucket.
Okay, thank you.
Seriously,
So why are you taking the bucket back outside? Anita McDonald says, I have chronic pain and it's hard to garden, but I use containers so I don't have to get on the ground. It's hard and it causes pain, but it also brings me joy. So one of the things my mom likes to do is do the self-watering container gardens. What's the matter with you?
Got matches.
Okay, how did he get matches?
I don't know.
Okay, we need to make sure we've got all that stuff. Look at that. We need to keep that put up in the closet where it goes and the matches. Stop leaving it down. Angie said, thank you for doing this. It helps to have someone that helps to validate my issues. God bless you. Well, they're my issues, so we share the same issues. Acadian French Fries said, Doug made a really good video about buying property the other day. Yeah, I think you really have to know what you're doing going into it for your particular area. Like for us, having flood irrigation was essential in our area. If you don't have flood irrigation, you don't have enough water to water a big property. And it's grandfathered in. It's something that comes with your property. And if you get a piece of property that it doesn't come with, then you're up the creek without a paddle because you will have no water. You can buy it as long as it's available from somebody else who's selling theirs, and then it belongs to you. But you also have to have the ditch system that reaches your property. You have to be on a property that actually has the infrastructure already built in. If you don't, you won't be able to farm here. Let's see. Rain Country said, yes, it has been freeing to be out of debt. And I don't remember. It seems like that happened a lot of years ago. Like what? Like 5 or 6 years ago that you guys got your house paid off? A. Taylor said, we grew up using a bucket and tub to wash in, born and raised in Browning, Montana. Yeah. We don't do the bucket and the tub thing. We do like the pressurized weed sprayer that hasn't been used for weed spray, just because then we can bathe the whole family in 1.5 gallons of water instead of having to use like 5 gallons of water to get one person clean and then having to dump it. If we had to do it that way, we'd probably only wash off once a week, and we really couldn't do that. We had to shower every day just because our neighbor sprays a lot of herbicides and pesticides, and so we have to have a clean, safe space where we get clean from that every day. And so that's why bathing every day was really essential. And to have that weed sprayer, again, that had never had weed spray in it, made such a difference. Million Pumpkin said, how many annual inches of rain? Here it gets like 11 inches at best, but town has 1 cent per gallon to haul yourself. That's awesome. What are we, like 7 inches?
I think we're 11.
Are we 11 inches?
10 or 11, something.
Depends on the year.
Uh-huh.
Most of our moisture comes from the mountains and comes down as snow melt in our irrigation system. Oh, a hoary knife. Yeah, I've heard those are really good. Mrs. American Freedom 1776. Good morning, Idaho fam. Good morning. Good morning. Angela said, Danny at Deep South Homestead is where I saw the stick for sweet potato slips for the first time. I loved it. Yeah, it's amazing. I can't grow sweet potatoes in the ground here. I have to do it in the hotbeds. Leave him alone. Hey, if he's leaving you alone, you leave him alone. Just let me do your. I don't want him chewing on you while I'm trying to do it. Mrs. America Freedom said, your braid is beautiful. Wish I could do those. Okay. Somebody come get this because it has glass in it. There are little pieces of glass in there, and we need to stop putting it on the ground. It goes in the closet.
How about if it goes in the garbage?
Well, we can continue to use it. Just go put it in the closet. Rain Country said, I think it was in 2014 we paid off the house, which opened up doors for us to invest in more property equipment. I think that's so wise. Laurie Kurt said, we are in the snow belt. Our water table is so high we have a well pump 1 foot down. That's awesome. Fred Stan said, you'll grow more for cheap and no chemicals and protect diseases because protect against pollution. Okay, I think I missed the first part of that. Angela Nato said, our neighbor also uses lots of pesticides. Rain Country said they get 120 inches a year there. That's amazing. Mrs. America Freedom said, my husband and I have found it's best to stay in low debt by making sure we have minimal payments on things that have really been beneficial. Do you want to, here, stand up on your knees and show me your braid. You have to go the other way. There we go. She is ready for school.
That was painful.
That was painful.
My hair is so thick.
My husband and I found it best to stay in low debt by making sure we have minimal payments on things that have really been beneficial, looking at debt in that way. Yep. Spring Meadows said, we paid off our land 2 years ago, building our home debt-free right now. That's amazing. That's a lot of work. 1 million pumpkins at 7 inches. That's rough. Kudos for all you do. Thank you. Tamara Doughton said, good morning. So happy to catch your live stream. Your rabbit information was great. I'm so glad. What is on my nose? Got something on my nose. Mrs. America said, your hair was pretty. Beautiful, actually. But don't get a big head. 1 million pumpkins said, we sold our house in Southern California suburbs to buy 40 acres in Arizona just a couple months ago. No debt, no infrastructure either. Building a regenerative pasture from scratch. Oh, that's, wow, that's a lot of work. Do you guys get enough rain to be able to put in a pasture in Arizona? Acadian French Fry said 120 inches is insane. Well, that's why she's called Rain Country.
Yeah.
Be careful. You got a computer right next to you, okay? No, you're just going to let her do what she's doing, or you're probably going to be the reason she spills on it. We're supposed to get about 20 inches or so here in Napa County, California, but in a drought the past few years, not sure what we're getting now. Andrea Blue said, your hair is so beautiful. Your daughter's hair is like my daughter's, super thick and blonde. Let's see. Messy. Deborah Robertson said, do you have a farmer's market booth in the summer to help with some income? Just curious. I don't. For me, it is not. The food that I have on my property stays on my property. It takes enough time, energy, and money to create it that I want in my family's belly. And I sell some breeding stock to people, but that's the only thing I sell from my property. Maybe some tree cuttings in the spring because they're effortless on my part. But because we don't have rain here, every drop of water that gets somewhere is because we put it there. And the soil, we're building it all the time, but it requires a lot of care. And so I'm more concerned about having giant children with good, thick hair than I am about putting my food in somebody else's belly. Miss American Freedom said, what's the latest time you start your day? So Kaya has to milk at 7:30 in the morning. And generally we're up 5:30. I'll be up maybe at 5:30. Kids will be up at 6:30. And 6:30 is our normal time to be up and start working. All right. What time are we? 7:43. Okay, I'm going to go crack the whip. Graham, come here. Let Dad walk. Okay, you need your gear on and you need to go start with chores, and you can take him with you so that he's not under everybody's feet. Let Dad go finish what he's doing, and then you can. Laura Farrell said, appreciate you sharing the lathe techniques when attaching tarps as well as for cubes and sheds. Utilized it for a shed we have and it worked wonders. Yes, it's amazing. Anything that sandwiches. I mean, you can use 2x4s, but all it takes is lathe. And Rain Country said, good for you, Mom. Always good to see parents that put their kids to work. This is where the real learning happens, right?
Yep.
Tamara said, you have convinced me to get a goat. You're the only person who has given me practical information. Well, I'm so grateful for that. Make sure that in your area you find somebody that actually puts milk in their own fridge so that you know it has good flavor. Make sure to try the goat, milk her. Make sure they save only her milk for you to try cold before you buy your goat. It tastes different warm than it does cold. Sometimes it develops flavors after it gets chilled. So be picky, be super picky, and make sure to make friends with goat people so they can find you good animals. Yeah, I know. You're going to go with Paige. Good morning, Grandma Ginger. Mrs. America said, rain country, real world learning is so important, part of society. Angela Nato said, good advice. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to go crack the whip on kiddos and eat some breakfast. Thanks for popping in. If you guys want to see how I built the $100 self-heating greenhouse, the plans are on Etsy. I think it's in the description. It helps my homestead when you guys get those plans. And also, I would love to have feedback. It's my first draft, so I put it up for like $7 is how much the plans cost. And it's because I'm waiting for feedback. I'm waiting to have more pictures, better pictures as I build more of these. But by purchasing the plans, you allow me to get the supplies to be able to do a more beautiful job on the next set. Because I can't really scavenge it if I want it to be beautiful. If I'm going to scavenge it, it's going to look like I scavenged it. Whereas if I can go buy, make sure it doesn't go on the bed. There's like dirt on the bottom, babe. You can just put it on the floor. If I go buy it at the store and it's new supplies, then I can make it look good. And that's really my goal, is to find out how to make these things look like something you could do incognito rabbit and quail raising in a backyard, even if you have an HOA. I want to figure out how to make it really beautiful. So, yeah. Things like IBC totes, barrels, and pallets are in a price war here in Apache County, Arizona, where off-grid is allowed. Yeah, I think there's pretty much that for all materials right now. Our 2x4s, our lumber right now is incredibly expensive. IBC totes, we got ours for free years ago, but they're starting to break down. You always want to make sure that they're food grade. If you're going to use IBC totes, things like molasses, that's the only thing you want to have been in your IBC totes, because a lot of times they're used for chemicals, for agriculture, liquid smoke, and molasses. I think those are the two things that were in our IBC totes that we got. All right. Hey, Jennifer, how are ya? Anger. Rhymes with danger. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to go get some work done. Again, check out the Etsy store. I do have an Amazon store that has a lot of the tools that I use. Top right corner, and you just hit the Amazon thing, and it shows ever purchased that I was grateful for on Amazon. And I tried to put in little descriptions of what I use it for. Again, I feel like I'm just shamelessly plugging all this stuff. But the thing is, if I can't get enough money to build them to look classy, people aren't interested in them. My mother and my mother-in-law don't have self-heating greenhouses in their backyard. And the reason is because my dad and my father-in-law don't think they're pretty. And so if I can figure out how to make them pretty, and if I have the funds to make them pretty, then maybe my mom can have a self-heating greenhouse and my mother-in-law can have a self-heating greenhouse. I think that my dad and my father-in-law are a good indicator when I've done something really successfully and they let me duplicate it for my mother-in-law and my mother. I know I did it right. And at this point, they won't let me put them in. They think they look trashy, and they do. They do look trashy, but they work. And it makes me sad every time I listen to my mom and my mother-in-law, and they're talking about how they wish they were gardening, and they're so sad because the weather outside is so cold, and they wish that they could get their gardens in. And then I think about it, I'm like, well, you've seen what I have. Do you think you could talk to Dad and just say, can Julie build me one? And the answer is always no. So, shameless plug. I need the money to turn these into beautiful things, to make new plans so that I can show people, so that people can raise their own rabbits in them and raise their own quail in them without having to lift a lot of material, and have greenhouses that let them garden in February in a zone 3. So you help me by purchasing your homesteading crap with my Amazon link that is in the, I believe it's in the top right. You help me by buying my plans. You help me by being part of my Patreon. I think I'm at like $120 a month now on Patreon. I think these beds, I think this greenhouse, I think the cost of them is going to be probably $300 for one of these self-heating greenhouses if I have to buy new materials. I think that's what it's going to cost. And yeah. But it might just not be the time for it. It might just be okay that the one I'm making looks like crap, and the people who really care about growing food in a cold climate will just see it for what it is. That's what the plans are. The plans are teaching you the principles I use to put it together, not telling you to use the specific materials that I use. And so for any of you that are handy or carpentry inclined, you can look at what I did and say, oh, I have a way better solution for that. And you can make it better. So if any of you bought the plans and you start to make it, please send me pictures and please send me information about how you made it better, made it prettier. The email is dirtpatcheaven@gmail.com. It only has one H. And please send me information about how you made it better. I want to make it better so I can make one for my mom. Anyway. Nita said, well, they should definitely change their mind and let them build it so they can heal. That'd be really nice if I could, but I understand. Not everybody lives out in the country, and you know, if you're in town, pallet building is probably not the amazing thing that it feels like to me. I like it to be easy. I like to be able to just slap it together in a couple hours and be done. But I understand that some people are really good at carpentry and they're perfectionists, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that sometimes they swallow at the cost and then they don't build it because they swallow at the cost it would be to build it with new materials, or they are tired, they're older, they're tired. My dad is in his 60s and he gets tired thinking about building one himself, but he doesn't want me to build it the way that I built them because he doesn't like how they look. So. Oh, that's terrible. Andrea said she had a contaminated IBC tote that was supposed to have had food grade product in it. It poisoned her cat and dog. All right, I'm going to take off. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.